stage and screen with Andy Snowden. Let us know what you want to hear on WhatsApp with the number 01978 540 410. We love local. Calon FM.
Shall We Dance from The King and I. Wonderful. And the multi-award-winning Broadway production of the Rodgers and Hammerstein's The King and I is set to return to the Venue Cymru in Llandudno next week as part of a massive UK tour, following its critically acclaimed sold-out season at the London Palladium. Helen George, best known as Trixie in the hit BBC One series Call The Midwife, will star as Anna, and the title role of the King of Siam is West End and Broadway star Darren Lee. And Darren joins us direct from his dressing room in Birmingham via Zoom, and even though after the last 3 years of us all using Zoom, I'll be honest, I'm still a bit fingers and thumbs with it all. To get a bit of a grasp on it. So we'll see how we get on, shall we? So Darren, well, let's start there, shall we? Let's talk about the lockdown. I mean, it's fair to say it's been a little bit of a nightmare for everybody. How was it for you?
I mean, of course, it's very difficult for everyone. I think that one of the things that I learned during the crackdown was that a lot of industries were able to exist remotely. But the live theater industry and sort of what I do could not. So much of what I do is based on that face-to-face interaction, being able to look at another person in the eyes and sing to them. And that is just something that we didn't have. And so we're really, really thrilled to be able to sort of pick up where we left off and continue this UK tour of The King and I.
Yeah, fantastic. And that is exactly it, isn't it? It's just great. It's just great to be back. And I think there was a point where we thought that might not actually happen, but here we are. We're doing it, which is fantastic, right?
Absolutely. I think that so many people in so many different ways feel like something was taken away from them or they missed an opportunity. And so it's really, really wonderful to have something actually continue or be able to pick back up again.
Yeah. And how is life on the road? Is it a good place to be?
I enjoy it. I saw most of the U.S., doing national tours of Broadway shows. And so I have never really seen much of the U.K. And so I'm very excited to be able to see these different cities, to be able to have somewhere to go in the evenings to work. And so it's always nice to get to tour around on someone else's bill.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you do go to places that you might not necessarily go to. Do you like to do the touristy things when you're out and about?
Oh, absolutely. I think we generally have a couple of days off or daytimes off. And so I pick a few of the greatest hits and I try to see what I can do in each city.
Fantastic. And of course, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to work out. You hail from America. Are American audiences, theatre-going audiences, are they pretty much the same across the world? Are they the same as the British crowd?
They're very enthusiastic. They're very warm. They're very. There is one scene in the second act that opens up and there's a particular line that says, "I didn't know that Englishmen were so aggressive," and so that particular line does sell a lot better here than it did in the US.
Yes, absolutely. One thing we're good at is mocking ourselves. That's for sure. But this is a huge tour, and you're playing the King of Siam, of course, in the King and I at the moment. We'll talk about that in a moment if that's all right, because your career going back, I mean, it's quite eye-watering, really. I mean, you started at the age of 11, and you've been working pretty constantly ever since, right?
Yeah, I've been very lucky. I discovered that I had a love for dance and theater at a very young age. I was on a television program that was kind of like American Idol, basically, but it was called Star Search. And from that, I started doing commercials and television. And then I was very lucky to be cast in my first Broadway show, which brought me from Southern California to New York City when I was 17 years old. I I worked on Broadway for a good 20 years. I was lucky enough to perform in about 11 Broadway shows. And now I also have transitioned into directing and choreographing more. And so it's really nice to be able to do a little bit of both. I get to perform sometimes, and sometimes I get to be on the other side of the table and help the creative vision come to life as well.
It sounds like it helps to have understanding parents, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think I'm, I grew up in, obviously I'm an Asian American person. And so I grew up with peers in high school or school where their parents made them become doctors and lawyers and go to Chinese school on the weekends. And my parents were really, really wonderful, allowing me to do what I felt like I was drawn to, which was sort of dancing and singing, which is not really a traditional thing for an Asian family to allow. And it is obviously paid off in the end. But I'm sure there was a period of time when they were maybe doubting their choices. And so I'm just glad that they were so supportive.
It's always good when it works out. I think that's the idea.
Yes, yeah, that is so true.
But The King and I, it's coming to the Venue Cymru in Llandudno next week. I think it's one of the most iconic shows, more iconic musicals in the world. Its reputation precedes it, really. But for anybody that isn't quite sure, could you give us a quick synopsis of it?
Sure. Well, The King and I is about the King of Siam in 1862, and he brings a Welsh school teacher to his country to help teach them English. It's at a time when his country is surrounded by foreign powers that could potentially swallow up his country. And so he believes that by bringing things from the Western culture, he is capable of allowing his country to survive. The challenge of that is that his country is based very strongly in tradition. And so he's having to analyze what it is and how he rules his country and whether or not he is able to adapt to be able to survive in the world today.
And this one stars the beautiful Helen George, who is famous to us all in Britain as Trixie from Call The Midwife. Life must be quite tough for you, right?
Oh, yeah. She's absolutely delightful. She's so lovely. She's so very talented, and we're having just a really, really wonderful time.
I think it's fair to say that when audience members go and watch somebody that they think they know, they're quite surprised when they end up being as a real triple threater that the singing and song and dancing and everything. I think that's a surprise to them, really.
Absolutely. I think that in general with an actor, people tend to become a fan of them from a particular performance or a particular moment in time. And it is often that, when forced to have to sort of come to the realization that it's a human being and that they have other attributes, not only necessarily from what you love, but maybe potentially things that you might love them more for, it is always a little bit of a wake-up call.
Very much so, yeah. And I find it strange as well when singers, really, people who are pop stars, and they go into musicals, and people say, "Oh, I didn't realize you could sing," and you think, "What?" That's what they're famous for. But there is obviously,
or I didn't think you could act. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's the old adage as well that you should never work with animals and children. And this one, it kind of throws the rule book out, doesn't it? There's 15 of your children. I mean, that's incredible. That
is correct. One of the attributes of the King of Siam is that he did have many wives and he did have many children, and that is part of the show. And the little ones are really spectacular, and we have a really great time.
Do you find that there's we were quite used in the past to having musicals with children, Oliver and Annie and Bugsy Malone, for example. But there seems to be a resurgence lately of shows like Matilda and Billy Elliot of exceptionally talented children. Is that a fair observation?
I have noticed that as well. I think that I don't know. I really don't know exactly what that phenomena is, but I am really happy that musical theater is it's like all art forms. It has to adapt over time. And if there happens to be a moment in which a family-oriented experience is something that is financially viable, I am all for it. I think that the next generation of any art form is based on an older generation showing a younger generation. And so I think that family audiences is really where it's at.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, you close in Birmingham tonight, Saturday, Birmingham, and then you'll be playing Llandudno, Venue Cymru, the 7th to the 11th of March. Darren Lee, it's been a treat to speak to you this afternoon. Thanks ever so much for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Marvellous. You take care of yourself and enjoy. Have you played Venue Cymru before, by the way?
No, not yet. I'm excited.
Well, it's right on. You come out the front door and there's the sea.
That's fantastic. I've heard that it is a waterfront community. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, but you hail from California, so don't get too excited.
Yeah, I'm sort of used to that.
It's the Irish Sea after all in March, right? So
okay.
All right. You take care of yourself, Darren. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Cheers, mate.
Whenever I feel afraid, I hope that tune convinces me that
The King and I, starring Helen George and Darren Lee, playing at the Venue Cymru in Llandudno from the 7th of March. That's this Tuesday until the 11th of March. That's just for 1 week only. Box office number for the Venue Cymru, 01492 872 000. 01492 872 000. Go on, support your local theatres, ladies and gentlemen. They won't be there forever if you don't.
Stage and Screen with Andy Snowden. Let us know what you want to hear on WhatsApp with the number 01978 540 410. We love local. Calon FM.